Yesterday, the first event on the president's schedule was the cabinet meeting. You were on pool duty. You were there when Cecilia Vega asks the question, do you believe that Russia is still meddling in American elections?
Still targeting
was the word, targeting.
But
so,
yes, that's...
Right. Here is the exchange, but you can't really, the sound doesn't do it justice. That's why I want to play this first and then get you to tell us what really happened. Here it is.
Is Russia still targeting the U.S., Mr. President?
Press, let's go. Make your way out.
No, you don't believe that to be the case? Let's go.
Okay, so, it goes back and forth, but it sounds to me like she asked the question and he said no. And then, did she ask a follow-up?
She did, and then the president said no again, and then proceeded shortly thereafter to expand on his answer, talking more about Russia, his policies, and Putin. And then there was a little bit more talking between him and members, or mostly members of the press, including myself, trying to get in a question, and him, for the most part, ignoring and smirking at us and sort of chuckling a little bit as press were ushered out of the room. And as soon as we were ushered out of the cabinet meeting, a few of us, including myself, looked at each other, who were standing right there, and just all said the same thing. Like, oh yeah, that was clearly what happened, right? The ABC News reporter, Cecilia Vega, got in a question as the press was being ushered out. The president of the United States looked directly at her. They had it.
That's what I was going to ask you. He was looking at her. He knew who he was talking to.
Yes. And
then she followed up, so he knew what she had asked again, and he clearly again said no, right?
Correct. And if you were, even the clearest thing to me staying right there was when he said no the first time. It was very clear. I know sometimes stuff doesn't get picked up on audio or TV cameras or whatever in the same way if you're standing right there
as we just heard, it's
from it.
Hard to sort it out.
And there was a little bit of crosstalk. But when you were standing in the room right there where I was, it was abundantly clear what was going on. There was zero ambiguity, and everybody who I asked who was around me, the other reporters, came to the same consensus. And when he said no the first time, that was the clearest thing I heard. And then when he shortly followed up on his expanded answer, it was clear that he was riffing, as he usually does with members of the press, especially in situations where he's confronted with a press pool.
Yeah.
And he was talking to Cecilia Vega. It would be like somebody 2 feet to my right now. If they witness you and I talking for 15 seconds right now, and then I left the room and then tried to tell the third party that you and I weren't talking.
Yeah.
It just wasn't.
You're looking at me. I'm looking at you. We are communicating.
She asked him, Mr. President, is the Russian government still targeting the United States and its elections? I'm paraphrasing here, but that's what she said. And he responded in the negative, either because he doesn't believe that's the case or some other reason. And
she followed up. I keep coming back to that because, that's important. That she followed up to be sure that he knew what she was asking.
And not just that what she was asking, but that he was talking to her.
Yes.
And the thing that I keep mentioning is this White House spin after this, because it obviously doesn't look bad to them. It's a screw-up on top of a botched walk-back on top of the initial colossal screw-up in Helsinki.
Right.
So there's a lot of shambolic activity going on this week coming from Team Trump, mostly the president himself. But anyway, I digress.
But then,
the fact,
if I can just jump forward.
Sure.
Then so Sarah Huckabee Sanders says, no. The president was not talking to her. He was not answering her question. And she said, and that's my job to interpret what the president says. He was answering a different question, not that question. And you then followed up in the afternoon to your initial report saying you stand by your report.
Oh, absolutely. Because, well, first of all, this wouldn't be the first time that Trump or the Trump White House would go out of its way to, if we're not to say lie, shall we say, try to spin their way out of the truth. It wouldn't be the first. This stuff is par for the course for them in terms of fudging the truth about gigantic national security matters or things as small and petty as this. This doesn't actually matter that much. I mean, you can argue that it fits a pattern, but it's one small Trump response out of many.
And in this case, as you pointed
things.
out, it's the third day in a row that they've tried to dig themselves out of what was a colossal screw-ups on Monday.
Yeah, and the White House officials I talked to all say that the internal machinations of this and the relentless damage control they've been through for the past 72 hours or so reminds a lot of them about certain episodes like post-Charlottesville and post-Comey firing. There's a pattern here that this particular president can't go too long without things erupting into this kind of self-inflicted crisis. And again, the big salient term here is self-inflicted. These are all things of President Trump's own making. But the point I want to make with regards to what you said was the official line of the Trump White House right now is that, oh, what you heard and saw with your own eyes a foot or a couple of feet away from where it took place didn't actually happen. And the president was saying, no, I'm not taking any questions. Their spin is undercut by the fact that he did take the question. He didn't just say no repeatedly.
Right.
He expanded on his answer and started talking about how supposedly tough he is on Putin and Russia. So what I was wondering afterwards, I think I tweeted this out yesterday while I was on pool duty, was I don't understand why, if you're the White House and you want to lie about it, or at least present your version of whatever truth you have, why you didn't say what the president meant was, no, the Russians aren't doing it anymore because I'm going to stop them. That's much more plausible spin and fits with what he was saying in the cabinet meeting because he was ranting about or rambling about how tough he was on Russia. So some of this just is nonsensical to the point where you wonder how stupid they think their viewers are.